Carnival said they done with y'all. They tired of y'all ass coming in and smelling like weed, and they tired of y'all ass bringing y'all kids in and just leaving them any and everywhere like y'all left them at y'all grandma's house.
Black fatigue. It's all over my FYP page. Thank you. I am so happy that this is being brought up. And oh, by the way, for us white people that have been around the block a long time, this isn't new to us. We've been dealing with this for over 40 years.
Hey, y'all gotta stop saying Carnival is racist for changing their rules about their policies on their cruise. Fact of the matter is, they're not racist. They're not saying they don't want black people to come on. They don't want them on.
So it's looking like Carnival Cruises is now in some other. No pun intended. Hey guys, it's up, Imurgency, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about everyone's favorite summer pastime, and that is cruising. Yay! Oh, no, not that type of cruising. I know I have a very strong girly and gay audience. Get your mind out the gutter. I'm talking about Carnival cruising. Yay! Yay! Well, actually, let me dial that down, because based on some of Carnival's new policies, which we're going to talk about, it would appear that my black ass is doing too much. Yes, you heard me right. And as you may or may not have seen online, Carnival Cruises have released a set of policies for their cruise lines that have seemed a little targeted. And of course, if we're talking about it on this channel, these new policies have begun to stir up discourse online, mostly because a lot of these policies and alleged policies seem to be in all ways but directly disincentivizing and penalizing blackness on the boat. And that's just one part of this conversation, because that alone, businesses being racially insensitive, we see that every single day. The second aspect of this conversation that I think is really interesting and worth dissecting is the fact that while yes, Carnival's actions are sus at best, people online and in real life have been making it their life's mission to make this whole thing as weird and as blatantly racist as possible, which is very strange, because it seems like a lot of y'all really couldn't wait to hop on TikTok just to air out all your grievances with every black person ever in a public space. And we're gonna get into that because things are looking very spooky. And the real gag of it all is that this doesn't just have to pertain to white people saying these things, as a good portion of the people having these conversations are also minorities themselves, choosing to take this opportunity to weaponize respectability politics. And yeah, this whole discourse got very weird very quickly. It's kind of shocking to me that all of this has gone down over a cruise ship, but you know, apparently family cruise lines just bring it out of some people. But let's start this conversation by talking through what exactly these new policies were. So yeah, if you don't know, Carnival Cruises, you know, the very popular cruise line who also happened to recently have a whole Netflix documentary expose on them called Poop Cruise, is now allegedly involved in some other BS, literally and figuratively. They've recently released a set of new policies that read as a little odd. And by odd, I mean racially charged. So the main policies that were recently changed were regarding the ban of personal speakers and things like clacking fans. Like if you've ever been to a Renaissance or a Cowboy Carter concert, you know exactly what I'm talking about, the kind of fans. And what's that about? You're hot in the sun on a boat. Like, word to Beyonce, fan me off, I'm hot, hot, hot. But it's looking like if you do, they will actually lock you up in jail. I'm kidding, that's a Beyonce joke. But there have also been videos and speculation online that Carnival Cruises, in addition to those things, is also banning hip hop and rap music. And I think that headline is really what got the conversation going around, like, oh wait, Carnival, this is kind of weird. This seems like kind of very specific over what audiences you do and don't want on the boat. Like as of right now, there is no hard ban on hip hop and rap. People have just been noticing that on Carnival Cruises, there is less and less of that. And another policy that struck a chord with a lot of people was the banning of gardening. If you get what I mean, YouTube guidelines, even if gardening is legal in the passenger's home state. And of course, since we live in a society arguably on one of the worst timelines, the internet's reaction to this was very split, very harsh, and shockingly, or not the full truth. So breaking news, Sierra, you don't know this, all the other girls know this, but the internet tends to blow things out of proportion. Wow, who would have thought? But yeah, while a lot of the real policies that did go through are still kind of side-eyeable and have me looking at Carnival a little different. When it comes to things like the gardening ban, that was done because there's now a federal law that makes marijuana illegal on all cruise ships, which in that case, okay, understand that. What about the clacking fans? Like why do we hate the clacking fans? Upon further investigation, the clack fans are only banned in the nightclubs, but not on the deck where the line dancing and other things happen. So yeah, you really can be in the club like clacking your fan in the heated, but you can ban yourself off by the pool and also show where them fans at during the line dances. So okay, we're good on that front. Still a weird way to be restrictive, but you know, work. But what about the hip hop ban? Well, as we mentioned, the hip hop ban was never actually specifically a policy, but again, was more so an observation and something that's worth observing as to why they're playing less and less of it on the boat. Regardless of how these policies actually ended up playing out, many people on the internet have began speculating that perhaps Carnival is trying to do some kind of rebrand. But like, even if that's not the case, that is still kind of yikes, considering how many people are expressing that they're canceling their trips anecdotally from these alleged policies. And now you may be asking me, Rumi, why do we just go through all these policies if half of them aren't even real policies and the other half aren't actually explicitly racist? Like, where'd you get this narrative and why are you trying to interject race into everything? Well, that's a loaded question. I know, I just asked myself. Well, first of all, unfortunately, race is unfortunately inherently in everything. And that goes out to all the people in the comments of the AI minstrelsy video I posted a couple weeks ago. Yeah, clock it. But when it comes to these policies, we don't necessarily care about the policies themselves. Well, we do, but we don't. This conversation in the carnival of it all doesn't necessarily have to do with specifically the policies, because as we found out, the policies aren't doing too much. But what we do need to talk about and what we do need to highlight as being weird and strange behavior is the general conversation that spun out of this whole seemingly fake discourse. Because while some of the policies or alleged rule changes were fake, a lot of these sentiments, conversations, and talking points that people had online in response to that were very real and very concerning. Because for some reason, the internet decided that they were going to back a company and stand 10 toes down behind these rules that did not exist and use the opportunity to be exceptionally anti-Black. We have people online coming forward talking about oh my God, I can't wait for these policies to be implemented. Like, there have been too many Black people on the boat, using and hiding behind terms like Black fatigue, despite not knowing what Black fatigue even is or is about. And actually, on that note, because I've been seeing this term be thrown around a lot online, let's actually define what Black fatigue is, shall we? So Black fatigue was a concept created by Mary Frances Winters, a founder, a CEO, and a Black woman in the diversity and inclusive consulting space. You know, back when DEI actually meant DEI. And she created this term as a way to capture the psychological, physical, and emotional exhaustion Black folks feel due to the systemic racism and oppression, as well as microaggressions and acts of disrespect that they experience on a day-to-day basis. But of course, as most things do, the term has been shifted, and when it is used now by certain people, it does not mean that. It instead means people being fatigued of having to deal with and be around Black people. That don't sound crazy to you? Because that sounds real crazy to me. Like, we've gotten to the point where it's not even a dog whistle anymore. Like, at this point, it's a foghorn. They are telling us, we do not like your kind.
Black fatigue is real. I think society as a whole is there. We are just so unbelievably fed up with the ghetto ratchet behavior.
Black fatigue. It's all over my FYP page. Thank you. I am so happy that this is being brought up. And oh, by the way, for us white people who've been around the block a long time, this isn't new to us. We've been dealing with this for over 40.
I'm gonna help y'all get some rest because you're just so damn tired. Here we go. The term was created by us for us.
White folks get to be universal, which is the default standard of behavior, and they get to be individuals. Their mistakes are theirs, not the whole race. But Black people, we get neither. We don't get the privilege of being individual and universal.
If one of us acts quote unquote ghetto, then we're all suddenly the problem.
I think this video makes a great point around universalism and individualism, talking about how mainly white folks get to be universal and like the default standard behavior in society. And we see this with every minority community trying to assimilate to whiteness. And in contrast to this, white people are afforded the luxury of being individuals, as in their mistakes, their shortcomings, as well as their successes and reasonings behind their successes are completely their own and not a reflection or a representation of their entire race. Where in contrast, that's just not the case for any other minority, but especially Black people. And I know before people start going crazy on their keyboards, there are things like the Karen memes. And within the last 5 to 10 years, people have been starting to make more jokes online about white people's behavior. But like, let's think critically and let's think historically, right? White people have not existed in a monolith in the same ways or for the same duration as Black people and other people of color. Like, let's entertain the nuance. Like, you see it all the time in the news. Like, when you see a white person committing an atrocity, they get afforded a lot of humanity. People want to understand why they did it, get the psychology behind why they did what they did, what caused them to do that. However, when a Black person or person of color does something terrible, the news doesn't really care, and really they're just checking to see if that person is still alive or not. And oftentimes they're banking on the not. And then from there, the entire race is under scrutiny for being a danger or a threat. This monolithic type of thinking where it's not just an individual, like it's not an isolated case, now all of a sudden it's the entire race's fault, and the entire race is guilty or potentially guilty. And again, I'm going to bring this back to this video so many times because a lot of people in my comments really show their asses with like the AI video. And this leads us to a quick conversation around respectability politics. Because while yes, we're used to seeing the finger being pointed at us from other communities, we are now seeing in the scope of this conversation, the Black community take sides and begin pointing fingers at each other. So let's talk about that really quick. So let's talk about those dangers and uses of respectability politics. So what is respectability politics? Let's break that down. According to our best friends at dictionary.com, respectability politics are a set of beliefs holding that conformity to prescribed mainstream standards of appearance and behavior will protect a person who is a part of a marginalized group, especially a Black person, from prejudices and systemic injustices. Respectability politics place blame on groups already hindered by discrimination. So like I said before, the default of acceptable is inherently whiteness in our society. So the closer you are to that and the more you try to assimilate, the false assumption of safety is perpetuated. But unfortunately, neither of those assumptions are true because at the end of the day, if you're not white, you're still not going to be white just because you want to act like it. Now, with all that said, where does this all fit in within the larger conversation around the Carnival Cruise, around the Black fatigue of it all? Well, I, for one, have seen one too many videos of people trying to create a strong distinction and separation, talking about some, yeah, I'm Black, but I'm not like those Blacks.
Hey, y'all got to stop saying Carnival is racist for changing their rules about their policies on their crew. Fact of the matter is they're not racist. They're not saying they don't want Black people to come on. They don't want come on.
Like, I can understand the sentiment and see where it's coming from, but are we seeing how respectability politics are being put at play here? Pointing fingers and saying you're not like that isn't going to save you from the racism online, and whatever brownie points you are getting, being like, oh, I'm so happy you're one of the good ones, is not going to actually last or get you anywhere substantive in real life or online post this interaction. So truly, I have to ask, was it worth it? And it's just so devastating seeing so many TikTok comments and videos from Black people saying that they have Black fatigue on public internet. And mind you, when they're talking about this, they're not using the one that was actually meant for them. They're using the white version. Like, what do you mean as a Black person you have Black fatigue? You're tired of seeing Black people. Honestly, if that is the case, given the state of the country and the world right now and the political climate that we're in, that's just like not one of those conversations that you have publicly and outside of your community. Because then what you get is people outside of your community taking that and using that as a reference, but people being like, see, even your own people are tired of y'all. And using discourse that's meant to be in the community and internal as a way and as an excuse to perpetuate anti-Blackness. And unfortunately, or I guess in some cases fortunately, this serves as a reminder that respectability politics aren't going to get you anywhere. Well, maybe not aren't going to get you anywhere, but aren't going to save you. And this is a POC you at the end of the day. We've seen this time and time again, where you have Black people, other people of color with some of the highest degrees, the most educated, idealistic career paths, highly rated citizens, good families, good communities, active members in their communities, and all of the hallmarks of being good in traditional white American standards still end up being the targets of the police, of racism and racial violence. Like, and again, while I'm talking specifically about all of this in relation to Black people, this is not only true for Black people, it's true for all people of color, all minorities. And we're seeing that happen in real time right now with what's been going on with the country, reevaluating and changing what it means to be a citizen or a good citizen. Again, it doesn't matter if you're a respectability politics final boss, like if the powers that be don't want to see your humanity or worth outside of what you look like, then none of it is going to matter. In that video, you see civil rights lawyer Brian Stevenson's testimony, where he says, I thought if I did everything they told me to do, if I did all the hard work, everything was going to be great, there'd be equality.
If I did the things they told me to do, I started in a colored school, the lawyers came in and opened up the public schools. I thought if I did all the hard work, that everything was going to be great, there'd be equality. And I did my part, I think. I studied, I went to high school, I went to college, I got admitted to Harvard Law School. I graduated from Harvard Law School. I started practicing law. And I was on the street in Atlanta, Georgia, a few years after graduating, preparing for a case when police officers stopped me. I got out of the car and the police officers pulled their gun. They pointed it at my head and they said, move and I'll blow your brains out. And the reality of that has to be articulated and expressed.
And that's the whole issue here. That's a false narrative that if you play into white society and play by those ever-changing rules, you too can be permanently equal to everyone else. And that just simply is not the case and has never been the case, unfortunately. It kind of bleeds into the universalism versus individualism that we were talking about. Because unfortunately, Black people don't get to be that universal standard or get afforded the same levels of individualism. A person who does it right doesn't get the extension of individualism. They just exist as an extension of the preconceived monolith. You're well-spoken for a Black person. You're one of the good ones. And again, this is not just a Black issue, whether you want to believe it or not. This goes for all minorities. least. But with that said, it's time to take a step into talking about how people have been using this whole Carnival Cruise moment, specifically to all of the different dog whistles that have spawned from this conversation and the notion of Black accountability. So I initially thought to talk about this when I was reading some of the comments on the Carnival Cruise videos, as well as some of the comments in my recent AI minstrelsy video, bringing up a lot of racist rhetoric and saying some pretty crazy things under the guise of just saying, just like holding accountability. Like some of this stuff has to just be rage bait.
Black fatigue or ghetto fatigue is a real thing, and no one's staying silent about it any longer. No nationality wants to be involved or bothered by this loud, obnoxious group of people. No one, not even hard-working Black Americans. I mean, I'm telling no lies here. Everywhere that group of people go, chaos follows. And no matter where you go, they're there. But America is tired, and people have grown numb to your constant cry of racism. Everyone's a racist who doesn't agree with you. But meanwhile, you can be big to everybody else.
Like in that video, he says this has to be the EBT crowd, which I guess is like the gender neutral and like plural version of like the welfare queens. So I guess in that sense, like period inclusivity, I see you making your strides, king. Like I love when people are politically correct in the gender sphere only to go ahead and turn around and be anti-Black in like the racial sphere. You know, I guess we pick our battles. But like video aside, one of the main concerning things are like the comments, because most of the comments are not even from Black folks. So them agreeing, being like, yeah, I'm just really tired and fatigued of these Blacks. I'm tired of seeing them everywhere. Or like, ooh, this is getting a little spooky. Like I don't know about that one right there. If that's necessarily the video you want people like co-signing and agreeing with you on. I mean, I don't know if the creators like super worried themselves, because they do claim to be an Uncle Tom and like reference that as a good thing in the video. So I think there are other battles to be fought there. But like another thing about that creator's video that kind of plays into the Carnival Cruise stuff and like general things when it comes to discussion around problems of the Black community is the notion of like Black accountability, which ultimately does fall into like the whole respectability politics and its fallacies thing of it all, because the conversation around Black accountability and like whatever that means is inherently anti-intellectual and inherently reductive. Like a big argument that people have online surrounding like things like Black fatigue is just like Black folks should stop acting like this. They don't want to be treated like that. And like generally, in a very general sense, where we're taking this out of the context of this conversation, ignoring all of the historical context that has led us up to this moment, and taking that comment in completely good faith in a utopian society where things that are said like that are in good faith and will be implemented accurately in good faith, yes, that does make some sense. However, because we do not live in that society and have not lived in that society and have seen how these things play out historically, that's just not necessarily a real argument, because the thing about it is the goalpost over what is acceptable behavior and what is behavior that Black people or people of color need to take accountability for will always be moving. Like the goalpost for like what is acceptable will never be static, because in our society we'll always have something new to complain about, something new that makes them uncomfortable, something new that they don't really feel at peace around. So asking people to conform, and that goalpost keeps moving further and further, you have to ask yourself, what is the end goal? What would the end goal of like shutting out all of these behaviors ultimately be? And this is where we kind of need to start critically thinking about this. Like, what would be the end goal here? And this isn't to say that you can't have a problem with people or don't like certain behaviors that people exhibit, because yeah, everyone has behaviors that we don't exhibit that happen culturally and individually. But like, just because you don't like the actions of individuals or like a certain group within a community doesn't mean you can attribute those character attributes to the entire community and attribute it to something that's just baked into just like a race and or respond to that with just racism. Like I just think like this whole conversation is incredibly reductive. Like y'all really weren't listening to Kendrick's halftime performance where he actually had Uncle Sam out there saying that you shouldn't be too ghetto and that you should play the game. Like, is it freedom or is it forced assimilation? I don't know. And like a quick last point before we wrap, I just have to say, like at the end of the day, all that aside, if you don't agree with anything I said, I understand that. On a very base level, right? If the issue on these cruises, and we're talking about the cruises specifically, if the issue on these cruises, public cruises, mind you, is that the public is there. If we want to talk about accountability, we have to realize like, girl, yeah, your public party cruises are going to be open to the public and there are going to be parties. If the way you're choosing to spend your vacation is on a cruise that is not explicitly saying that it is a peaceful 50+ relaxation cruise, then why are you going there looking for that, you know? Or like, why are you mad when that's not what you're getting? Like, if you wanted something peaceful and relaxing, there are specific cruise lines for that, or completely other venues and vacation options for something like that. Like, I hate to say it, but like Carnival Cruise literally has carnival in the name. I don't know. I could be completely off base for this, but like, God forbid people want to enjoy their vacation and dance around and party without having people like police their every behavior. Now, I will say when things get dangerous, unsafe, or just genuinely unfun for the collective, then conversations need to be had, but like, not racist ones. But if it's just groups of people having fun and you're not having fun in the same way, that's more of a personal problem, I fear. But yeah, to wrap this up, again, this video is not about Carnival Cruises. It's not specifically a like Carnival Cruise hit piece. This isn't what it's about. I mean, maybe a little bit. It's about how people felt these policy changes were enough to enable them to spew harmful anti-Black rhetoric, unprompted, and using this as an excuse to express their Black fatigue. And like, no, this isn't the space for that. In fact, I don't think there should be many spaces to freely, outwardly express your racism. Because no, that doesn't make you a concerned citizen or cruise goer. It just makes you racist.